In this video tutorial, we are going to look at the issues that affect the family in both the Caribbean and globally. Stay tuned. We have several objectives for this lesson. In this lesson, we will look at the several issues that affect the family as a unit in the Caribbean. And these issues are juvenile delinquency, street children, sexually transmitted diseases, substance abuse, human trafficking, alternative lifestyle, teenage pregnancy, incest, domestic violence, dissertation, and issues with the elderly and special needs people. Poverty. We'll also look at the strategies in place for dealing with social issues that affect the family. First, we look at juvenile delinquency. Juvenile delinquency is the act of committing a crime at a very young age. So when they say a very young age, is usually before a person reaches adulthood, right? A juvenile delinquent is a young person, particularly a teenager, under the age of 18, who breaks a state of federal law by committing a crime. Now, these people under the age of 18 are considered children, and these children are children with behavioral issues who rebel against authority, who tend to act out, who do drugs, drink alcohol, break school, quit school, and get involved with the crime and criminal elements of society. Now, these children are also, or these juvenile delinquents are also under the age, so they cannot be tried as a criminal, okay? We have, in Trinidad, for example, when people under the age of 18 commit a crime, for example, if they happen to murder somebody, if they rob, if they steal, if they do drugs, there is YTC, which is a detention center for them, and they will not be tried as a criminal until the age of 18. Many factors contribute to delinquency, such as abusive homes, poor parent-to-child communication, and negative peer pressure. This word here, negative peer pressure, this has a lot to do with juvenile delinquency, right? There's this saying that children act and learn from what they see. And usually during their school phase or the part where they mingle with people around the same age, a negative influence can get involved there to cause them to have disruptive behavior or to act as what they see. So they do the drugs because they see somebody or somebody forcing them to do it, and so forth. Delinquency may be avoided if struggling parents seek the assistance of a counselor or a professional trained person to handle young people. It can cause conflict in the family in terms of being a strain on the parents. The negative influences on children of the home, especially the younger ones. So it is very hard for parents to deal with a juvenile delinquent in their homes because, one, they have no respect, no form of fear towards a parent to understand that they are being corrected, or to understand that what they are doing is wrong, or to even understand that they are not of age to have these kind of act in their lifestyle, right? And it is especially alarming if they are young children in the home, because these are the ones, the younger children are the ones who actually look up to the older people and act as what they do. The next issue that affects the family is street children. And don't be confused with street children to what is known as homeless children, because the term street children is used, or the term street connected children is used to describe children who depend on the street to live or to work either on their own or with other children or other family members. And they have a strong connection to public spaces such as streets, markets, car parks, bus or train station, and for whom the street plays a vital role in their everyday lives and identity. The wider group includes children who do not live or work on the street, but regularly accompany other children or family members in the streets. In other words, street children are the ones who depend on the streets for their survival. So when you go and you're driving around Trinidad and you happen to see a little boy selling a bag of mangoes, and he's coming up to your car and asking if you want to buy one, He is dependent on the streets for his survival, right? He is trying to make a living by selling his fruits. Now, this is deemed as against the law because one, he's just a child and he's not supposed to be engaging in no form of work at this point. His only job is, so to speak, is that of going to school, playing, and obeying his parents, etc., right? To be a child. So the street children are not, and I will reiterate, are not homeless children. They have a home, but they are the ones who are out there on the streets trying to make a living, either by themselves, connected with other children, or family members. Now we move on to sexually transmitted diseases. And these pass from one person to another through sexual contact. Many common STDs or STIs can be cured, but left untreated, some can lead to serious long-term problems such as infertility or even death. The most serious STD is HIV or the HIV virus, which has no cure. There's only treatment, but no cure. To combat or ease the spread of these diseases, sex education is important, as well as access to items that can reduce the risk of infection, such as protection during sex, right? So we can educate people about these diseases and they can take the necessary precaution. STD do lead to breaking up homes, and an innocent partner can be the one being affected, especially if one partner was unfaithful, goes out and get the disease, can bring it back to his family, well, to his wife, or a wife could go back to her husband, and so forth. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I talk about broken home. It do breaks up a marriage, it do breaks up a home, it causes people, it can lead to debt, it can cause financial burdens because there are some places who don't hire people based on their based on the stigma and their status. Okay, so you have to be very careful. Then we have substance abuse. When a person abuses drugs and alcohol, they become a substance abuser. Alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and ecstasy are all some of these substances that causes one to get addicted. Some of these are legal, while many are illegal. Therefore, this creates a rift in the family, especially where finances is concerned. It can also lead a person to be out of character or suffer from behavioral issues causing abuse. Psychological issues are raging due to drug use. These can lead to long-term health problems or even death. It can cause a person to be out of work and as a result, negative outcomes in the family. When we say out of work, if you are working for reputable companies or in certain professions such as sports, engineering, especially those engineers who work offshore, they are often tested for alcohol and other drugs via blood samples. And if one reason or the other it comes up positive for any of these substances, they will be immediately dismissed. Okay? A member of the Trinidadian cricket team or any cricket team, national cricket team for that fact, they are constantly checked for these things, okay? And if there is a trace in their blood, it can cause them to lose their jobs or even tamper with their career. Human trafficking is the next issue that affects the family. So trafficking in persons is a very serious crime and a grave violation of human rights. This is basically where people are taken out of their, basically people are kidnapped, right? And taken away without consent. Every year, thousands of men and women and children fall into the hands of traffickers in their own countries and even abroad. Almost every country in the world is affected by trafficking. Trinidad and Tobago, by extension, is no exception. Okay, whether as a country of origin, transit, or destination for victims. There's this news article that went by, due to the location of the Caribbean and the easy getaways, trafficking is actually very easy here, right? It's simple to do. Trafficking of a member of a family can disrupt a household. Imagine a mother losing her daughter because somebody kidnaps the daughter. Think about the heartbreak that parent has to face the home has to face, the other siblings in the family have to live with this fear of being taken, or live with the fear that their daughter or son or child, for that fact, is out there, maybe alive, and being used against their will. Many people go missing every day and are trafficked to other countries. Every year, hundreds of children are kidnapped and trafficked for sexual exploitation or even labor in another place. So now you can put two and two together and see how this affects the family. If you ever read up on missing people in Trinidad and Tobago and really learn about how their family feel about the whole issue of them being kidnapped, let's say, for example, the whole kidnapping of Ria Sukdeo, right? She was the hairdresser in South Trinidad. She was taken. After this day, her father and husband believe that she's alive, right? That because they never found a body, the missing report was just a report. The case ran cold, and now they are just hoping one day that they will see her again, right? So this is how human trafficking affects the family. And she has 3 children who is every day longing that their mother will reach home. So we cannot take for granted these issues and say, no, it don't affect the family. It do affect the family, because more than likely it is a member of the family being trafficked to another country, okay? Then we have alternative lifestyles. Alternative lifestyles are what many feel to be unacceptable, okay? So everything that is normal, whatever change happened to what is normal in society, is considered an alternate, right? So for example, people change their sex. We have men changing to be women and vice versa. This is an alternative lifestyle, and this is considered unacceptable in most societies. Also, there's a case where gay and lesbian couples raise children. So now two gay people or a lesbian couple is allowed to adopt a child, whether boy or girl, and this is considered safe. The case where people choose to live a promiscuous lifestyle with many partners. So now we don't have people just want one person, we have people out there actually there with everybody, you could say, right? And then we have all the issues that affect the conventional family as life as it had been, is what we call alternate lifestyles. Okay? When we look at the family and society long ago, we think about mother, father, children. We didn't take into consideration other partners, the chances of the father being gay or the mother being a lesbian. We didn't take into consideration that. We didn't even take into consideration that one day a woman could be a mother and the next day she can be a father, right? These are what we call alternate lifestyles, and they do affect the family. Teenage pregnancy. This is a common thing in society. Teenage pregnancy is where a woman 19 years of age or younger becomes pregnant. This can be risky for the mental and physical health of a young girl. The emotional and psychological trauma faced by something her body is not ready for. This can cause many issues. Someone very young is forced to be a parent. Think about a 13-year-old girl. She's still a child, but now she's expected to be a parent. The mother might most likely drop out of school, right? There's cases where pregnant girls do go to school and they are bullied due to this, okay? Nobody has compassion for this. They view this as some kind of disgust to society. And this is a financial strain on the family, because let's say you already have enough members of your family and your daughter gets pregnant at the age of 13. She's not even allowed to work. So who are going to take care of the child's expenses, right? Especially for a child who is under the workable age. And this will add to conflict in the family. It will always add to conflict in the family, because it will lead a bumpy road that the whole family must go over, not just one person. The next issue is child abuse. Signs of child abuse, but are not limited to physical, sexual, or emotional maltreatment of a child under the age of 18, which can result in harm. the potential to cause harm or the threat of harm. Child abuse can take place in a home or in organizations such as schools or communities of which the child is a part. There are different types of abuse. There are sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, and neglect. These affect the family because one, the children grow up in violent homes and eventually they turn out to be very rebellious. Okay? Two, it can cause disruption in the home as well. Some abuse against children leads to death, right? You have a lot of people facing trials and making a jail because they were abusive to their child or children. Okay? And emotional or psychological abuse to any person, whether it be a child, is always hard to forget, right? And neglect. You are breaking up a home if you choose to neglect your child. We'll talk about neglect and dissertation a little later in this lesson. The next issue that affects family and the families in the Caribbean and by extension globally is incest. Incest can be defined as sexual activity with a person from within the immediate family. However, exact relationships which can be construed as incest will vary from culture to culture. Many countries have laws that forbid incest, but there is considerable variation in the exact nature of these. Incest. When we talk about a father and his daughter sleeping together, that is incest, and that could be charged. If you look on the screen, you'll see a picture of a father and a daughter, two arrested for incest, right? They have the incidents. Sibling sexual abuse is usually recognized as being the most common form of sexual abuse within family. It has been documented as being 5 times more common than that of a father towards his child or a stepfather towards his children. So incest can cause trauma within a family unit because most of the time these things happen in the home and we don't hear about it because it is just swept under the carpet, right? This is something that we need to speak out against. If it happens at home, you need to come out and talk about it because these are the acts that people can get arrested for. These are the acts that people can make a jail for, okay? So again, it breaks up the family. It caused children to run away from home. It caused them to become adults at a very early age and forced them to move out of their comfort zone. A next very prevalent issue that affects the family in society is domestic violence. Domestic violence is not physical violence alone. Domestic violence is any behavior the purpose of which is to gain power and control over a spouse, partner, girl or boyfriend, or intimate family member. Abuse is learned behavior. It is not caused by anger, mental problems, drugs or alcohol, or other common excuses. There's this one saying where you grow up in a violent home, you will have a violent home, right? Some of these domestic violence acts are listed to the right of the screen. It involved dangerous crimes against children, endangerment, threatening or intimidating, assault, aggravated assault, custodial interference, unlawful imprisonment, kidnapping, criminal trespass in second degree, criminal trespass in first degree, criminal damage, disobeying a court order, disobeying conduct, telephone to harass, harassment, aggravated harassment, stalking, surreptitious photographing, videotaping, filming, or digitally recording. Then we have aggravated domestic violence and child or vulnerable adult abuse. So domestic violence, just like child abuse, can take place at all levels: the sexual level, the emotional and psychological level, the physical level, and it can also be considered neglect. Now we talk about dissertation, which is basically when one partner in a relationship leaves without intending to return. It is mostly associated with a man leaving his wife and family. This creates a rift, especially where children is concerned, because now one parent is forced to do it all. Okay, one parent is there to handle everything, and which can be a financial strain. There are issues where fathers leave and They only come back when their child is over the age of 18, when they don't have to pay anything, when they're not expected to be a father. And this is usually the case, right? So the situation do affect the family. It causes the home to be broken up. And one parent, now I'm not saying that all the time it is usually a man leaving. This is just the prevalence of it. Sometimes mothers abandon their children and leave as well. Sometimes both parents can leave the children. And this can lead either the older sibling, this can cause a nuclear family to break up into a single parent family or even a sibling household family. Poverty is another issue that affects society, it affects the family. And poverty can be defined as hunger. Poverty is lack of shelter. Poverty is being sick and not being able to see a doctor. Poverty is not having access to school and not knowing how to read. Poverty is not having a job. It's fear for the future, living one day at a time. Poverty is losing a child to illnesses brought about by unclean water. Poverty is powerlessness, lack of representation, and freedom. This poverty definition encompasses living condition and the inability to meet basic needs because food, clean drinking water, proper sanitation, education, healthcare, and other social services are inaccessible. This poverty threshold starts with fear for the future and broadens to include dependence, oppression, and even exploitation. There's this saying that poverty is hereditary, so once you grow up in it, it's very hard for you to come out. Instead, it's a cycle and you remain that way. Okay? Now, there's this saying as well that to come out of poverty, education is the key, right? There's a story about a young girl who lives in the slum of a village and has no access to education, has no access to food, proper shelter, housing, etc. But she took all her spare time and she went to the local library, which is free for everybody to use. She went to the library and began reading books. Right? She was enrolled in school, and as a result, it was a government school, so it really didn't cost her parents anything to send her, just the fact that she may need something to eat and so forth, but she relied on the school feeding program. This girl would go to school every day and depend on the school now for some of her basic needs, such as food. She depended on the uniform, which was given to her from the school as hand-me-down from other students. She got food from the school feeding program. She got breakfast and lunch, and sometimes she would take whatever remainders from lunch home as dinner, right? She would take her schooling very seriously. She learned to read, she would write, she was very bright. She eventually went on to high school. From high school, she was that capable of getting a scholarship. She ended up to university. And from then, she started to work and build her life. So she was automatically out of poverty because now she had education to support her needs. She had the opportunity to get a sustainable job that can pay for a home and pay for a lifestyle that she never had. So this is one way we could come out of poverty, by just going to school and learning. There's this say, some people would say that education is useless in this society, but it's actually not. Yes, we may have a degree or 10 passes and may not even use them, right? But at the same time, the knowledge you gain from it will never have you in a poverty-stricken nature. It will always push you to do something else. Okay, so when one door closes, you automatically open another door because you are aware of the possibilities out there and you can make something happen. So poverty do affect the family. It affects them because children die from diseases, parents die, parents leave, children are exposed to all these elements in society and so forth. But poverty is nothing that can't be overcome. Maybe not the entire village, but family by family, they can come out of it. So now we look at the strategies for dealing with these social issues, right? So we went through a plethora of social issues that affect society, and each one you need to have a general comment on and understand how it affects the family. A general strategy for dealing with social issues is the prevention of the circumstances that give rise to the issue in the first place. This might involve improving education or providing individuals with the attitudes and skills to help them avoid poor choices. Individuals and organizations working on these issues may also need help and support. So when we're talking about poverty, we have the Ministry of Housing and Development that may offer agency homes. We have the Ministry of Micro and Labor Enterprises, which might provide employment. We have places and ministries and NGOs. Children Authority helps with child abuse. Domestic violence are dealt with by the police, and there are laws in place for breaches of these things. We also have religious organizations that help with situations that affect society. So there is help out there, there is measures in place for people, but at the same time, it's not all that effective because maybe of the volume of people or maybe the idea of actually accessing all these services to someone is unreasonable. So this was my tutorial on issues that affect the family in society and by extension society. And I hope you pause the video throughout and make your necessary notes. All the notes that is on this video is very concise, is not summarized, is already summarized notes. So you summarizing further may lead you to taking out the main points of it. Also answer all questions that goes along with this lesson and continue reading any handouts that are posted for you. Remember to continue studying, to continue pushing the work, and continue revising as much as you can. It will help you in the long run. So thank you for watching this video tutorial.